Did you know there are things you can do in public that look completely illegal, but are actually perfectly legal? Things like recording police officers digging through dumpsters, or even refusing to show your ID. Most people believe these actions could get you arrested, but the truth is very different. In fact, one of the things on this list has gotten people threatened by police, even though it's protected by law. And another one is something millions of people do every day without realizing it. But the last one, almost everyone watching this video has done it at least once. So let's start with something that has caused huge arguments online. Number one in list is recording police officers. Picture this. You see police officers making an arrest in public. You pull out your phone and start recording. Suddenly someone yells, "Hey, you can't record the police!" But in many countries, that's simply not true. Recording police officers performing their duties in public is often protected by law. Why? Because public officials working in public spaces can legally be documented. As long as you don't interfere, recording them is usually allowed. But the next one on this list, it's something people get judged for instantly, even though there's no law against it. At number 2 is walking barefoot in public. Walking barefoot in public makes people stare. Some people even think it's illegal. But here's the truth. There is almost never a law requiring shoes in public places. The famous phrase, "no shirt, no shoes, no service," is not a law. It's simply a store policy. Businesses can refuse service. But walking barefoot itself, perfectly legal. But what if you were so tired during a road trip, you decided to sleep in your car? Could that get you arrested? At number 3 is sleeping in your car late night, empty parking lot. You recline your seat and fall asleep. It looks suspicious. But sleeping inside your car is usually completely legal. The only thing that matters is where the car is parked. If you're parked legally and not violating local parking laws, sleeping in your vehicle is generally allowed. That's why thousands of van life travelers sleep in vehicles every night. But the next one on this list might surprise you even more, because it involves tools commonly associated with criminals. At number 4, owning lock-picking tools. In movies, lock-picking tools mean one thing: crime, burglary, breaking into places, but in reality, owning lock-picking tools is legal in many countries. Why? Because locksmiths and security experts use them professionally. There are even lock-picking competitions and hobby groups. It only becomes illegal if you use them to break into something. But speaking of things that look suspicious, have you ever hesitated before taking a photo of a large building? At number 5 is photographing buildings. Imagine standing on a sidewalk taking photos of a huge government building. Security guards might look at you strangely. Some people might assume you're doing something illegal, but here's the reality. If you're standing in a public space, you're usually allowed to photograph anything you can see. That includes skyscrapers, hotels, offices, government buildings. The rule is simple. If it's visible from a public place, photographing it is generally legal. But the next one has created entire online businesses worth millions of dollars. At number 6 is reselling items for profit. Let's say you buy something for $20 and sell it online for $200. Some people think that's illegal, but it's actually called flipping, and it's perfectly legal. Entire businesses are built around reselling sneakers, vintage clothes, furniture, electronics. As long as the items aren't stolen or counterfeit, you're simply participating in the marketplace. But now we're getting into something that surprises almost everyone, because it involves police and your ID. At number 7 is refusing to show your ID. If a police officer asks for your identification, most people assume they have no choice, but depending on the location, you may actually have the right to refuse, unless you are driving, you are under arrest, or the officer has legal justification. Without those conditions, in many places, you don't automatically have to show ID. Of course, laws vary depending on location, but the belief that police can always demand ID is not always true. Now, the next one sounds completely harmless, yet it used to be restricted in surprising ways. At number 8 is collecting rainwater. Catching. Rainwater seems simple. Water falls from the sky. You collect it, but historically, in some places, this was actually restricted. Why? Because of old water rights laws. Today, however, most regions allow people to collect rainwater from their roofs. In fact, some governments encourage it to conserve water. So, that rain barrel you see in someone's backyard, totally legal. But what about digging through someone's trash? This next one might shock you. At number 9 is dumpster diving. It sounds illegal, digging through dumpsters behind stores. But legally speaking, once something is thrown away, it is often considered abandoned property, which means dumpster diving itself is usually legal. However, there are exceptions. It becomes illegal if you trespass on private property, break laws, or ignore warning signs, but technically speaking, finding valuable items in the trash isn't always a crime. And believe it or not, some people have found electronics, jewelry, and furniture worth thousands. But the final item on this list is something almost everyone has done and felt embarrassed about. At number 10 is talking to yourself in public. You're walking down the street, and suddenly you realize you're talking to yourself out loud. It might feel awkward. It's not illegal. People talk to themselves while thinking through problems, practicing speeches, or even talking through earbuds. As long as you're not disturbing others, talking to yourself is completely legal. So the next time something feels illegal, it might actually be perfectly allowed. Sometimes what seems suspicious is just a misunderstanding of the law. But now I'm curious. Which one of these surprised you the most? Comment below. And if you enjoy discovering things that seem illegal but aren't, you'll love the next video about things that are actually illegal but people do every day. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Because the truth is, the law is often very different from what people think.